to my computer here. Okay, and this is recording. All right, so men, checking in here with a couple of things as far as the ground rules, and then we're going to kick this conversation off. So where we are for ground rules, we participation. And can everyone see this? If you give me a thumbs up, somebody, you can see this? Yeah, cool. All right. Yeah, it says ground rules. So ground rules participation. We're going to do our best to use I statements, so speak in the I. Also, what I'd like for you all to remember is that you could choose to pass on the discussion. You could choose to comment. I ask that if you want to give feedback to another man, that you please ask before you give it. And if you require or need something, then ask for it. Also, nonviolence, want to be aware of how our language and how we're speaking to each other, and want to be mindful of our words and how the potential impact that they can have. Personal leadership, take care of yourself. Okay, if you have to use the bathroom, get water, whatever it means, whatever that means, physically, also mentally. If you want to take a pause, take a breath, take care of yourself, and ask for what that means for you. And we talked about breathing. You want to breathe. All right, inhale, exhale, as we go through and we share these comments and things that we're going to talk to today. So, give you a little context before we dive into this. When this all came up was actually, it started in the last BIPOC Collective conversation. And we started talking about, we were expressing what was going on in the world. And we started talking about how one of the participants talked about how men use the dick as a weapon. And then we started a conversation around sperm wars, buck breaking, and that sexualization of the black male became about from that. Now, the thing that's really interesting is that in this space, what are we doing with your dick? Is really how are we penetrating? What are we penetrating? And then what controls your dick? What's behind that? So in this sense, that's where this whole conversation or this whole thing started from. Where this conversation goes from here, we'll see. But when we think about that, I want us to check in now is where is an area, or actually before this check-in, is when you hear the term dick control, what does that mean for you? When you heard the term dick control, what does that mean for you? And in whatever sense you choose to, it's up to you. We'll start off with Vincent, Ivy, and then we'll go to Lincoln.
Okay. Control is self-control. This is whether or not you whether or not in I don't know about everybody else. It's whether or not you feel like you're disciplined. You feel like you have control of yourself. It's whether or not you can resist, urges and temptations and the like, in reaching certain levels of your life and achieving goals in, control. It's everything. Let me give you an example. When I was in college, as I see my Howard alum down there in the bottom right, I'm a FAMU alum, by the way. I noticed that, most of us fellas didn't have that, because while we around in the dormitories, we waiting for the girls to come out. But what are they doing while we're waiting for them? They're studying. Why can't we just go study? So it is both a literal and a figurative, as you had it up on the screen, but it's all together because, wars are fought because cats can't control it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Alexander Hamilton died because he couldn't control it. So if you look at that, it's intertwined. They're not severed. You can't sever that. They're together. As a matter of fact, I would go as far as to say the reason that you need that control, because it looks like everything that we do in life is in pursuit of using that. And at a deeper level, the reason that it's in pursuit of that, because really what a man wants is to prolong his legacy. And the ultimate way to prolong your legacy is to procreate. Right? So if you can't create offspring, you can't prolong your legacy. That's why people name their children after themselves. They're trying to prolong their legacy. That's why the family gets your last name. That's prolonging your legacy. So the control is intertwined with the ultimate goal of controlling your legacy. So you figure if you lay your seed in as many places as possible, the odds go up that you're going to prolong your legacy in some positive fashion. I'm done.
Damn. I got some comments on that, man, because that was hitting in a lot of ways, Paul, for me. I was resonating with a lot of things you're saying. Anyone, before we move on, anyone have any comments on what you just heard before I add in? Yeah, Ivy.
The prolonged legacy. It's interesting. Orgasm is called petit mal, which is a small death. And the prolonged legacy is in my view, the fear of death. I want to go on an ego. So it's only by dying that one is born to life eternal.
Right.
So it's just we said.
Right. Small death. Let me write that down.
Yo.
What's that? Petit mal.
Yeah.
Petit
mal.
Yeah, that's why Oh My God is said more often during that time period than any place else, because people are dying. I mean, literally, everything shuts down.
Right.
Everything shuts down. You are dead for a split second. At the point of, I'm talking about a good one. I'm not just talking, I'm not talking trash here. I'm talking about a good one.
Yeah. Well, listen. Yeah, something that's more sacred, something that's more sound, something that's more connected. That's a whole other experience. But coming back to this legacy piece, when you said that, there's an energetic piece that hit me too, because someone was asking about Black fatherhood and why is it that a lot of Black men are not in the homes. And when you said like spreading the seed, like I was thinking about my lineage, like, the men in my family had kids with different women. And I found that's in my, like, I have the same situation. And it's interesting that this conversation, what you just said about that legacy, like, I want to live on. It's like, wow, dude, man, that is something about when you said that hit, man, especially about the control, because making these children, I was out of control here and here. Like I was failing to be, I had yet to understand what connection really even was. And I was just living through, like, the first kid was with my wife, but then the second one was like with a friend. No control, lack of it. So yeah, that was hitting me. Thank you for that. Thank you for saying what you said. And that was what? Man, here we go. Thank you, man. So, Ivy.
Paul, are you recording? I don't see the record button on. Did you click record?
Yeah, it's recording.
Oh, okay. I didn't. Okay, mine is not lit. Okay, got it. Good.
Well, it's funny.
Yeah, we're recording.
Did Lincoln want to chime in on this?
Yeah, Lincoln, just something about Vincent. Because we're going to go to Ivy. Everybody's going to get to say what it meant for them, but I was wondering if they had any comments on what you said.
Well, I wanted to go back because he was some petit mal. But just think about it, who we are in this society.
The thumbs up?
Yeah, who we are in this society, and why do we behave the way we be? First of all, some of our behavior is only slightly devious from the general public's behavior. It's not like white men don't behave like this. It's not like Latino men don't behave like this. It's not like Asian men don't behave like this. It's that their culture allows a little bit for that behavior.
What's too much? Where do you draw the line?
Well, here's the thing.
Because behavior is learned.
No, I get you. But the line is drawn in as much as it doesn't work for us. So forget about everything. Forget about morally, whether you like it or not. Functionally, this isn't working. Because we're not creating armies to fight. We're not creating workers. So what are we creating? What is going to prolong my legacy? What am I creating, and what can I contribute to this creation that it will prolong my legacy? Now, it's a fear that I believe it's psychologically a fear that our existence doesn't mean much. So we're doing whatever we can to grasp that we feel like we don't have. I believe it's a subconscious thing too.
Okay, I feel like we're getting way ahead in the sense.
No, but he's talking about control.
Yeah.
He's talking about control.
Yeah,
Why can't
no,
we control it?
but this isn't my check-in. But basically, in response to what you basically said, and it was something I said in the previous, we inherit a lot from our fathers, from our parents, from our long generation. And so we're talking a crossover from where we were in the motherland, the transition and what happened here, and 300 years or more of teaching to be a certain way. Mm-hmm. And so there's so many different things here. There has been an intentional demasculation and a disempowerment. It's not a matter of me having control. I have been disempowered, okay? Because part of the system is definitely set up to encourage absentee fathers. Mm-hmm. So the offsprings are out running amok. So it's sort of counterproductive. And then if you go back, there is one song that tears my heart out. It's the woman who sings, "How Come Me Here, Lord?" And it's, it was born out of slavery. And the mother is wailing, like, what did I do, God, to deserve this? And like, I have no control over my body. I have no control over my children. I have no control who I can, mate with. And then I was just posting that in response to something that I think a sister wrote. It was sort of one of those deals where the male was powerless, period. I mean, the kids were taken away, the partner was taken away. There was no way in creation to be the man, to be the warriors, to be the people we were intended to be. And that was so disempowering. And, the energetic transfer of that is so intense. They even talk about it in this new agey thing in terms of our food. We're eating an animal that has been killed through trauma.
Yep.
When we eat that meat, we pick up that trauma.
Yep.
We don't do, periodically I'll do some sort of ritual or blessing or grace, to minimize that. We have been demonized in terms of healing our ancestors. So in a sense, I feel like I'm still carrying the frustration of my father, my grandfathers, and so forth down the line. When I was a kid, it was amazing. I realized the importance of being able to protect the woman that I'm with and then question if I could, and that was an early understanding. And I don't know where that sort of came from. Well, watching my mother, and it's sort of.
So, yeah, okay.
So I can go on and on about that, but there is a lot energetically. And what I happen to, just because of a conversation with someone else, I'm starting to post on the Brotherhood Facebook page a slow progression to reclaiming that energy. And ironically, the next one is about your balls. It's really funny. I'm calling it the nozzle.
Timing. So also time for a second. So I want to just check in because we've had a mention of the Brotherhood. So Vincent, me, Lincoln, and Ivy are part of the Mankind Project. We're one of a group of Black men within the Mankind Project, and there's a group called the Brotherhood, where it's only only Black men. So that's when we talk about the Brotherhood. We post messages. It's a private group where we post different messages about empowerment, like how we move through, how we showing up in the world. So that's what that piece is. But I want to bring some of this back because a lot of stuff is unpacking right here, and I see Lincoln had some things that I want to check in if this was. Well, Lincoln, I think you had something you want to say, and in the comment chat you wrote, how do we bring the fathers back in the home? It is okay to sleep around, but what about safe sex? And how do you break the cycle? I think these are, when we talk about, this is some of the things that we want to address in this call, because I think the part about control and discipline is important for us to address. But I want to check in with each man because Vincent, you had your piece of what that dick control term means for you. Ivy, I'd like to hear from you, and then Lincoln, I'd like to hear from you what that interpretation means, or if you want to add it on what it's already been said.
No, I'm gonna sort of hopefully recalibrate, going back to the original question.
Sweet.
what that dick controls means to me is lack of power. It's not even a matter of being disciplined. I'm literally throwing my power away. And what that looks like is, it is no mystery that throughout history, the most creative expressions of the human spirit has come from being able to move the energy from what I call the cauldron, our balls, the psoas muscle, which is the seed of the muscle of the soul, the seat of the soul. Yeah. Being able to take that energy and move it through our entire being to connect with spirit and earth below. So in a sense, when I'm just whatever, you know, it's sort of like, and that's why they say in a sports game, no sex the night before a game, you know, or things along those lines, because in a sense, I'm just throwing my power away. And for me, that whole process is trying to fill a hole that's been created in me, trying to get some sense of validation, some sense of being, and so forth. So it's not a matter of necessarily controlling where I aim so much as and I didn't realize Vincent wasn't part of the Mankind Project, so to speak. But it's a matter of doing the men's work. And that's what a lot of it is. You know, the ascension to spirit is being able to let go of stuff, be able to let go of stuff, you know, and not be, in a sense, most of that's ego. Most of that's fear, expectations, you know, resentments. There's a lot of negative energies that sort of take place. Einstein is one of the good examples. Most of his creative work took place when he was single and not married. You know, because he wasn't so busy focusing on whatever that was basically depleting his energy. So it's a responsible retention. Yeah, it's a responsible use of the powers that for me are basically God-given, and that makes sense. It is a petit mal in a sense that in a sacred way, you know, so much more can be accomplished. The Church of the Tantra, I'm not talking about this new age Tantra shit, sit here edging and sort of get all guru'd out. But when you go back, it's like one of the oldest churches. They say it's like 60,000 years old. You know, it's how do you take, which is impossible, but that's beside the point. But how do you take that energy and use it basically creatively and constructively in a way that is sort of meaningful. And there's a heck of a lot more, because we do have the biological imperative, which I think was addressed earlier with regard to the whole idea of procreation. But that imperative existed at a time of much lower population. I mean, like seriously, like for example, the Vikings had an edict. We need fodder for war. You people keep pumping out kids because we are going to war. Every person is required to produce 1 ounce offspring. Now we're way overpopulated. I like to see everybody's side until we can get the population back in balance. That, you know, what we're doing right now for me is an abomination on this planet. And all the other, I'm going to continue to eat meat, don't get me wrong. But there's so much of the world there's so many beings that are suffering because of human overpopulation. And that for me is just
So go ahead. So if you want to just wrap that piece up, man. So I want to get to Lincoln.
Yeah, it just comes down to fear and feeling small and disempowered. Now, and B, dogs in a kennel, in a cage. They can sense danger, but they don't know the source of the danger. They will turn on each other. And that, I think, is what we've been doing in that regard of, say, procreation, because who is they? Everybody said it's conspiracy. With recent events, now we know who a they is. We have a place to direct that energy. But for most people, it's like, well, they are in control. They're doing this. And people are like, well, who is they? How the hell do I know? But with modern technology, we can figure out exactly who they are. But up to that
Okay.
point, when we don't have a place to direct our weapons, we just start shooting all over the fucking place and just like destroying whatever's in reach, because that has built up with no outlet.
Yeah, this is thank you for bringing that to the space, man, because this is important. I'm glad you brought that up in regards to dick control and what's happening when there's lack of. We have Keaton that's joined the container, joined the space. Keaton, welcome. If you could just check in, you could put your name and where you're calling in from and how you're feeling. If you could put that in the chat. I want to let you know that this call is being recorded, and at the end of the call, we're going to choose if we will delete or distribute to a select group at the end. So, welcome. Please check in the chat so we can continue on. Lincoln, I want to hear your thoughts on what the interpretation of dick control. What does that mean for you?
Dick control for me means a lot of different things. One, does it mean safe sex? Two, does it means that we're going back to a period of abstinence where persons outside of a monogamous relationship don't have sex? Or you go to where your grandparents will say sex is for marriage? Three, are we going against polygamy or having multiple partners? Are we talking about when it comes to having overpopulation, where it comes to not going out there and just sowing your seed as you see fit, and impregnating all these different women, and not being able to stand up for your responsibility or to be a father in the house or in the household? Are you talking about when you make decisions, you make it with your brain and not with your third leg? Is it that? So for me, there are a lot of different things that comes to mind. From an historical perspective, we're only 13% of the population here in the United States, which means that there's 87% of the population that's not black or not black. So are we going to be like China and say one kid for every household? Are we going to say to every man that you only can have one kid, and then you stop him or you deprive him of having more if he chooses to? What are we saying? Are we saying that you have kids based on what you can afford or what you can support? Are we talking about it from a socio-economical perspective? Are we talking about it from a moral perspective, where we're talking about ownership and we're talking about how we go about and deal with the population? Are we talking about from a climate control perspective, where we're talking about the more people you have in a certain space, the more polluted the world will get? Are we talking about how to support each other in case this is the lifestyle we want to do or this is the option that we choose? I'm very concerned to hear how different men feel about this. I love to see. I'm very thankful for the discussion. I've been listening to humans speak about it, and there are certain topics that are coming up that trigger certain things inside of me, and I'm really looking forward to hearing this discussion and see where it goes.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, man. Yeah, you bring up when you just say this has been coming up, like when you were talking about the hip situation, I've been I'm hearing a lot of people having hip concerns too. And it's interesting because like the body has energy systems, and the sexual energy center is the sacral energy chakra or sacral chakra, which is responsible for our sexual organs, our sensuality, and also our creativity. The thing that's interesting is that in our culture, we have yet to really learn or have some sort of programming or appropriate conditioning on how to hone that energy center. So most of the time it's either blocked or it's uneven, which results in physical ailments like lower back pains, sexual dysfunctions, hip problems and concerns, how we move in the world, as Louise Hay would say. So this is relevant because, as Ivy mentioned, that when we are distributing our seeds and our source haphazardly, we're giving away something from a sacred space, which is what the sacred means. Sacrum is hollow bone, sacred bone. So thank you for that. Thank you. Keaton, I want to check in with you before we continue on the conversation. Right now, we're checking in with. Well, actually, since I've yet to see you put in the chat where you're calling from, just if you could just introduce yourself, where you're calling from, how you're feeling, and then tell us what your interpretation of the term dick control is.
Let's see. How y'all doing? How you doing? I'll be talking to y'all. This is Keaton. I'm calling from Austin. What was the rest of the question, by the way?
How you're feeling today, and what is your interpretation of dick control?
Well, the world has definitely changed from our last discussion, but I'm feeling all right. It kind of feels really good to see that. I mean, with unfortunate events, it does come with one loud boom, because of these people are understanding our message. So that's really good. That is definitely. I think I can just go back to what I was saying last week, because our last discussion when it comes to that. Give me a minute. I really need to try to think about this, because I feel like this is a problem that we put on ourselves, yet we do not want to take responsibility for it. And this is just like one of the many things I feel like we as men of color really need to deal with within our community. Like I said last time, we see how stuff like this has been made into a business. There's TV shows about it, and people are literally acting a fool on national television, and people do not realize that these children are being made to pawns. These children are being victimized into the situation very innocently. What else was that? Children who are being brought to the world from by their parents.
Okay.
What else can I say about that?
Yeah, and if stuff comes to you, if you wanna check back in with it too, man, because I know you came in, we hit you with that one. If you want to take a moment, think about it, because I know, Ivy, you said you had, there was a comment you had on Lincoln Share, and then Keaton, I'll check back in with you.
All right.
Thank you, Paul. Well, I think it's the combination of Lincoln and Vincent, because in a sense, like it was said, African descendants aren't the only ones doing this. I just want to point out again, part of the manipulation. The whole idea of monogamy and romantic love is less than 200 years old. Mm-hmm. It's just another one of those tools, in a sense, to disempower the common man. So if you think about how many cultures have, for example, first night, whereas when you got married, the king is the first one to bang your wife. He reserves that right. And you think about the upper echelons, even to this day, they bang and buy and use and discard and throw out whoever the hell they want. That is their right as a leader. Mm-hmm. And that's something they have maintained for millennia, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So a lot of this perverted, warped, misdirected youth energy expenditure is also in part out of frustration and disempowerment and being manipulated into a corner. You know, so when we talk about these things, most of it's new. And it's not in our genes going back 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years. And those things need to be torn down. Males were not meant to be monogamous. Women were not meant to be owned. You know, and that's basically what that has come down to. Earlier marriages were mergers to avert war, to combine wealth. When I went to college, they didn't call them engagements, they called them mergers of wealth. They were arranged for political or for whatever reasons they were arranged. But you were still...
So it was like an intentional arrangement then?
Yeah. They were intentional to avoid war, to amass wealth, to whatever. You know, arranged marriages out of necessity was a part of a lot of cultures. You know, in a lot of ways. That's how come you got much inbreeding amongst upper echelons of kings and queens in Europe. You know, how do we band together? And the same thing in the tribal sense. You know, how do we build bridges? And in essence, that couple only had to have one offspring as a symbol of that union, hence the first night congregation or whatever it is, you know, consummation of the marriage. But in most cases, you were free to go out and do whatever the hell you want without social stigma.
So what I'm hearing is like this perception of the black man in that same type of scenario as a white man. It's like this connotation, this negative perception of black men doing this, right? So my question is, what's, like, just to play devil's advocate, what's the benefit of having black men distracted or having that perception of black men from this perspective? Vincent, you have a question? Yeah. Thoughts on that?
I may continue. Like what he's saying is, you know, my initial statement included the point that we're living in a way that doesn't work for us. We're applying their rules to us. It does not work it may not work for us naturally, but it definitely doesn't work for us in the social hierarchy that we exist in this country. So we are the people who the rules were not developed for us. They were developed for them. We keep trying to apply those rules to us, and they do not work. And let me just piggyback on what Ivy said. The whole procreation, like prolonging your legacy, it has a financial element too. There's a wealth element as well. So the more kids you have, the more chances you have at wealth building. The more chances you have at legacy prolonging. So Jane Jacobs writes this book about Dark Ages Ahead, and she discusses the fact that the way that we chase after this, because it goes back to the whole dick control. It goes, you know, what does control mean? Does it mean me, my wife, and one kid living in this big 4-bedroom house? You know what I mean? Because I've controlled it, but I can't make good on as much wealth as I could if I moved my brother, my mother, my dad, or had more kids. That's a more economical use of wealth to have that big house and all of that. You know what I'm saying? And so the more we play into that game, the worse it gets for us. The more we acquire the commercial debt, the more we try to keep up. We want the 5 Series BMW. We want the 4-bedroom house in the suburb. Meanwhile, we move out of our communities. So I'm just getting far afield of that. But I'm just saying, going back to what all of that causes, that lack of control or that over control will do to us.
But with power comes responsibility, and I think that's where the missing piece is. You know, are we responsible?
Right.
Well, where do we learn to be responsible, though?
And
I think that's why, that's the second part of the conversation.
Yeah, that's that chain was broken. One of the things I find really interesting, and learned this in the movie with a white Cleopatra, which was sort of funny. Even with Mark Antony, even though she was the queen and all powerful, she had to present the offspring to him, who was married to another woman back home, and have him claim the child as his own. We have DNA tests now. They didn't have it then. So she literally had to get on her knees and hold the baby up. And he had a choice whether to claim responsibility for it or not. And he claimed it. But that is also a common practice of, I will sign the baby's birth certificate and I will take responsibility to mentor that child into adulthood. And that's the huge piece that's missing, in my judgment.
The mentoring.
Well, I also want to touch on something. I don't know if Lincoln said it. I think Lincoln said it. Or no, Keaton said it, right? Wise woman once told me, the decision to have a child is the most selfish decision you can ever make. Because the child does not,
on that.
The child does not exist. You are not having a child for the child. You are having a child for you. There is no reason to have a child that includes the child, because the child's not here. There's no reason to make a baby that has anything to do with that baby. None. It's a selfish reason. You're having it because you want a kid. You're having it. The kid does not exist. You cannot say it's for the kid. The kid's not here. There's no kid to talk about. So no matter what reason you can give me for having a kid, they're all selfish reasons.
There is this thing called the sacred contract, which is going off left field, but I find that really interesting.
I hate it. Oh boy!
It's like when I die and I go back home, wherever that looks like, and I'm sitting back saying, "Wow, that was a great ride. I want to come back to Earth and do this again." I signed a sacred contract, and it saved my brain. It really saved my brain. This concept. I chose to reincarnate with the parents, time, place, conditions that I came in. It was my spiritual choice. I have no idea why. So when I was a kid, when I got to that understanding, I would look at the poverty, I'd look at the violence, I'd look at, the character defects that I look at all of that. And I would remind myself, I chose this for a reason. I chose to reincarnate for a reason. I don't know what it is yet, or maybe I do, but I just want to throw that out, that there is, on an expanded sense of a spirit in a human body. I had a choice in all of that. I chose to return.
But your choice did not merge with their choice. You understand what I'm saying? They're making a choice. I understand what you're saying. I hear everything because if that were the case, it would work out a whole lot better now, wouldn't it?
Well, that's where the derailment comes in. We're not taught that. The spiritual and connection to ancestors has been cut off, to earth, to the sky, to the Father has been cut off. All of that has been perverted in a way that really hamstrings us. So when we go back to the earlier of just where we point and use that energy, if we were to take more of a sacred, and I believe in the sacred sensual, the sacred sexual, it's all, nothing exists outside of God. Everything is sacred, period, in my world. It's a matter of how much attention and awareness I choose to put into it, so to speak. So I didn't even forget where I was going with that. But the whole process is much bigger than me. And then when I had my sacred contract coming here in spirit form, that may have been to bring in the next inventor of the quantum computer, so as to make the world a better place and maximize resources.
That's your sacred contract, correct? That's not your
sacred contract. Yeah. So it gets really convoluted. I don't know. I'm not separate from the whole.
None of it is.
So this is a
quantum physics,
here. Here we go. We're not going that way.
We already did.
We're coming back then. We're coming back. Now, this is interesting because, when you're talking about the space of one of the things, like around the last time when we had this call, when I brought this book, I started reading this book by David Data. By show of hands, is anyone familiar with David Data?
What's the book?
No, Finding God Through Sex.
Okay, I know the guy's name. Yeah, okay. I've not read that book, but I know the guy's name.
So I want to read this quote here. And this is gonna, I'm gonna use this as a way for us to transition into the solutions piece of the conversation as to how we redirect this as a collective for the Black man, and what we've learned or what we are doing. So this is what he wrote. Men aren't motivated to improve their intimacy or sex skills until they realize that in doing so, they're actually enhancing their true purpose. Your capacity to quote unquote fuck your woman is your capacity to quote unquote fuck the world. If you can penetrate your woman with love in spite of her resistances, if you can bloom her heart in happiness, if you can bring her depth when she is superficial, align her life when she feels lost, brighten her with humor when she is dark, if you can learn to give your deepest gifts to your woman, then by doing so, you are learning to give your deepest gifts to the world. Okay. So, we're gonna take a moment here. We're gonna take about 5 minutes. If you need to take a space, because we're gonna come back and we're gonna talk about how do we show up using this energy. So I'm gonna show a slide. It's something for us to think about. Hold on one second. Before we take this little break, and this is actually going to be like more of a breath and breathing break. I want us to think about this slide I'm bringing up here. And you guys can see solutions here. So I want us to think about these 3 things, right? In regards to what controls our dick and I heard it several times, the arrow, right? Where's the focus? Because this energy is like any other thing. It's like when we can harness it or we have a purpose to it, it's a powerful space, right? So what's the self-awareness? What would be the integration? And what would be the declaration or ownership to harness this energy? Okay? What would be the so another way, what would be the self-awareness around this energy? What's a way to integrate this energy, and what are the ways to declare this energy, like how we're going to use it? Okay, so I'm gonna take a break. Before we take the break, though, any questions on what we've discussed so far? Keaton, did you have something? I just saw. Yeah. Oh no. Okay. Oh, Ivy. Yeah.
Whoa! I didn't know we were coming back. I totally forgot. I'll remember it and come back. I don't want to hold up. It was something that Vincent said, and I tabled it. Sorry.
Oh, no worries, man. Hey, Ivy, too. If something comes up as someone's speaking, just write it in the chat, and then we can come back to it. And that's for everyone too, because if we go in conversation, we may have something. Put in the chat so we can come back to it. All right?
I remember what it was now. It was just a short piece.
And there it is.
What I've noticed in the last 6 to 7 months, in contradiction to what was just said, young men are calling sex smashing. I literally hate that phrase, and I don't know where the whole idea comes from. I mean, that is so disrespectful, so counterproductive. And every time I hear that word, smash, I'm like, what the fuck are you thinking? Thank you, that's it.
As opposed to all the other words that are equally as bad that are being used.
I mean, getting laid, there's a whole bunch of them.
Fucking, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
none of those words.
smashing
is just it's not worse than the rest of them. They're all bad. It's just you've gotten used to those other bad words. This is just a new one. That's all.
So I want to check in. So Keaton, I want to go into a question that you had here, and I want to check in if you're open to giving us some more thoughts on what you're asking here. Can you hold on?
You're muted.
There you go.
I just talk about the one I just wrote.
Yeah. Why are we shaming male intimacy? And what are the reasons we shame male intimacy? Let's rephrase that.
Well, define shaming.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Well, that's easy right there. Download community. That's I can just sum it up in one word. Download.
What word?
Because down low.
Down low.
Down
Okay.
low.
You talking about alternative sexual expressions, or you're just talking about more words in that question?
Free yourself,
I mean,
man. Free yourself, man. Go ahead.
I mean, really, I don't see why it needs to be seen as alternative, or why we should separate it from the other situations, because we are the Black community is the only community that have put a word to it. And what is upsetting is that we're not putting that towards that's not being used towards other races. So, and on top of that, there is there's a lot, there's a real shameness. Well, there's always been shame with LGBT and Black. They have purposely been made into oil and vinegar and oil and water, and I feel like, and that's been on purpose because of what we have been told, what we have learned through the church.
Slow down.
So Keaton,
how we have
Hey Keaton,
I didn't hear everything he said. It kind of got cut out for me.
Yeah.
Me too.
All right, hold on. Let me cut off my video.
Yeah, and
right.
I just want to check in with what I'm hearing so far. Yeah, that sounds clear. And I want to check in with what I'm hearing so far. What I'm hearing so far is that we're placing, we're separating intimacy with the action. Is that what I'm hearing, or is this something else that you're saying?
No, that's basically it, because you got to remember, intimacy doesn't mean penetration. Intimacy doesn't mean procreating. Intimacy can be another level of care. I could be very comfortable around you, and it doesn't have to lead to any kind of sexual act. And I think that we have been denying that we are basically we're not doing ourselves a favor by trying to basically leave just a very big hole between attraction and sexual attraction. So I just feel like there is a lot there. It basically just has become a sinkhole over time, because we don't want to, because when we think of that gay term, it has become such poison in our community. So because of that, we don't touch that. We don't touch that like how women touch it. When women get to that situation, it's seen as normal and it's seen as okay. But again, when it comes between men, that's when it turns into something that is disheartening. And of course, men, gay men have been put into a act of feminism and weakness, which I know is not the case at this point in my life now. So because we have spent so much time trying to basically give the Black man, basically setting up a witch hunt for the Black man if he has those different kinds of feelings. We basically have tried to basically turn them into the Witch of Salem, because if they by any chance have those kinds of feelings, certainly we want to teach them a lesson.
Well,
taking a breath on that. I know, Ivy. Yeah. So Ivy, you had something, and then Vincent. I want, if you can go, then you'll go next. Ivy.
Yes, Keith, thank you for putting that out there. I think the conversation really started out thinking about reproduction and sowing your seed to produce children with multiple partners. And so in a sense, you broaden it. So my earlier comments about how this is manipulated really applies. The whole concept of a same-sex relationship being separated out and given a term is less than 100 years old. The whole concept of binary is something that was brought about as a part of the control system, hence the divide and separate. And we've long moved past the binary because even genetically, there's more than two genders. There are a lot of cultures today that recognizes the other genders and the roles in what they play. Mm-hmm. There is definitely material out there on how the energetics in a family and the nature of survival is dependent upon a person that can bridge the two somewhere in the middle between, say, between, male and female in terms of being non-binary and same-sex oriented, because it brings in a whole different energy. And I think that there is an explosion of down low, which is more, I said earlier, men were not meant to be monogamous, but there's the whole explosion of down low is cross-cultural, because in a sense, as humanity as a whole is tired of being under the thumb of some constructs put out by the Nicene Church. Every culture across the world prior to the invasion of the church had a place and had a non-binary system that worked very well. For example, and I'm going to use the one in Africa, I don't know which tribes it was involved with, but literally there were tribes that would teach the man about sacred intimacy. An elder in the community would teach a young man about sacred sensuality or sacred sex and all that stuff. And then when they reached majority, they were given a shield and a sword and were told to go out and do whatever the hell they want. Nobody cared, but we do have to have offspring, that type of a deal. So there were different ways in which this was totally embraced. And the lack is relatively new and goes back to the male. The males are jealous. Women can do things we can never ever do.
Correct.
Women, when they are with child, for only people that are never can say, I am not alone. Men are always alone. Mm-hmm. We never have that intimacy connection.
Which is a constant fear.
Yes. Wow. And then also,
so Ivy, I want you, if you can start to wrap this through, because I want to hear from Vincent on this one.
So basically, I'll sort of wrap it up. We need to break out of the molds that has created the frustration and the anxiety, because it's not at all natural. It's been forced on us. And I think as a culture, we're in the process of reclaiming it. Thank you.
There's so much in this. First of all, there's the whole ownership of women property, both legally, socially, morally, the ownership of women. So if you are associated with women, as Keaton said, then your value is less. Then you are in the property class and not in the owner class, first off. Secondly, there is also an issue with men feeling, particularly Black men feeling. It's like the more you feel, the more you're devalued. Like you can't, the more you express your feelings, the worse you're looked at. And I'm an expressive person. I'm a feeling person. I'm like Keaton. I'm a feeling person. I'm an expressive person. I'm a feel. You're not going to take that from me. You know what I'm saying? And so even if it's heterosexual feeling, that's frowned upon too. You can love your woman. You just can't tell nobody you love your woman. you know what I'm saying?
That's some shit.
Wow. You know what I'm saying? So that all goes into that. And here we got this whole other class of people who share our chromosomes who's like, fuck you, I'm gonna feel. You know what I'm saying? And that's scary to some cats. And it's a jealousy, it's a fear, and it's also makes them fear themselves. Do I feel that way too? Yes, you do. You know what I'm saying? And they can't handle that.
Yeah, no. Listen. This is why we have this conversation, because it's coming back to tying in Keaton, what Keaton was saying, and also tying what Lincoln wrote about how do we make sex more open. I'm gonna speak more, instead of sex, I'm gonna reframe that to how do we make intimacy more open among Black men. How, because there is a shame piece around it where it's like, and it's beyond the physical. It is a connection, and also this is a place. Ivy, you talked about the tantric perspective. Really, instead of like the funky, sexual connotations or thoughts around it, it's breathing practice. Breathing with someone. And this is the relationship. This is what I loved about this quote, because what are the ways that we soften? What are the ways that we connect to that piece to move into, to move with? Rather than just moving, just like being forceful with things. It makes no
smashing.
sense. And yes, there it is. Right. And Keaton, you had something too?
Yeah. And plus with that, because I know that when you it's great that we can explain ourselves and give ourselves the opportunity to explain why is it that we talk about these things and why we feel these things. But of course, if we were to take this to an ultimate math, the stones are going to be thrown, I should say. But by not giving us the opportunity to be heard out, that is an unfair balance, because of all of the times that I have seen on TV and seen online, where it has been when Black couples have taken part in these multiple relationships, and these multiple women being brought into it and stuff like that. And it's just like, you want me to hear you out when you're doing these things, but because I want to bring more men into the situation, suddenly I'm disgusting. That is very, very, and that is wrong. And there's a discomfort there, because you don't really want to admit that there could be some actual point there. But again, because the gender is more males than it is females, suddenly we want to be seen as disgusting and invalid. So that is really what I do not like about the fact that we can about this. This is what I don't like, is that we are not being given the opportunity to be heard, to be given to share, to express explanation. And again, it's not like you don't have to agree with it. That's perfectly fine. I'm all for not understanding and disagreeing, but to completely just shun us out 100%, you're hurting your own, and you are not being welcoming, so to speak. Because welcoming means you have to be welcoming 100%, and when you're only welcoming 50% or 70%, you're not doing anything good for yourself. You're actually making the whole situation unhealthy, despite what your situation is.
You can keep Vince. I saw you, Jimmy.
Yeah, I just think it's a sign of a larger problem. I think it affects the LGBT community, but it's how we conduct ourselves, period. And it just so happens that that's caught up in it. You know what I mean? Like what I was saying about even in heterosexual relationships, there's a very macho kind of, the whole smashing thing. You know what I mean? Like what's that? The Far Side with Stress? Yeah, you know that song? It starts out with crush, kill, destroy, stress. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Right? So,
yes.
Right? So we have this thing where the whole object of being a man is being destructive. It's the whole object of being a man is being able to take it apart, being able to smash, being able to, you know what I mean? It's Godzilla. It's and so what happens is the gay men are a target of that. Just like black people are a target of the American crucible, gay men are a target of the black crucible. You know what I'm saying? So we can take it out on them, and no, but we do it, period. If they weren't here, there'd be something else. There would be something else. Just like if black people weren't on the bottom rung of society, actually, I didn't say they don't even have a rung. We're the base on which the ladder stands. You know what I'm saying? We don't even have a rung. If we were not that, you know what I'm saying? First of all, if we were on the ladder or above the bottom, we would treat the people at the bottom the same way everybody else does. First off, you need to know that. You know what I mean? Because of how we treat the gay men, that's proof by itself. Because we found somebody to dump on, and that's what we do. And that's that. Keaton, I got news for you. I'm way more disgusting than you can ever be. You're too young to be.
Keaton's like, I don't know.
Those doors have been long open for me. So, you think that's it? I'm like, dude, can we meet up once this pandemic is over? Because we can talk. But this is something, and this is something I will at least try to help you. I want to open guys open. I would want people to open their minds on. And that's going on all spectrums. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and discuss your sexuality. But I mean, this is why I was like, this is why I'm happy I talked about the stuff that I talked about last week, because it has gotten us to this point, and I like that our comfort level is really good to this. This is why I'm so much about nudism and nudist culture. And like I said last week, the penis and the vagina has been used as a weapon. And that kind of popped in my head when I said that last week, but now I'm more certain, and it's this week now that we're talking about it. And again, I really want you guys to understand, kissing a man does not make you gay. Kissing a woman a woman does not make you gay. Holding a man does not make you gay. Those are I feel like we have confused feelings or intimacy with penetration or the sexual act. The actual act of sex is penetration, and that's in all forms. But I feel like we have basically made that the say all end all, and we just put again, if a man kisses me and he's straight, then again, just by suspect or guilt by association, he might be seen as gay. If hypothetically if both of us men are naked and we're just holding each other, there's no sex involved. Again, people want to a slander of they want to put the gay slander on that, and that is my problem, is that we do not break these things down. I'm all about breaking things down and doing my homework. And again, as a whole community, we just think that, again, if I do, ABC, doesn't matter if we were, again, we could be in the same bed with no clothes on and not do anything, but that doesn't matter because we were in the same bed. Some people want to scratch their head and just want to think, oh, they must be a couple now, or something of that nature.
Keaton, in the scheme of thing, we're talking about the control piece, and I think this fits very neatly into the control piece, because that is another way of over control. The whole way that we respond to the gay community is an over controlling. We don't even need to address that as it is. You know what I'm saying? But because of the way that we're situated in our community, and we have a whole list of things that we probably need therapy on, long before we get to how we deal with that. But there are causes for how we deal with that. You know what I'm saying? So we need to understand how that fits into the big scheme of things, how we treat each other. Like I'm saying, it's an extension. The way that we treat gay men is an extension of the way that we treat each other. It truly is. You know what I'm saying? And this control thing, this, do you have your question? Do you have dick control? Isn't that what they're saying about gay men? They don't have dick control because they don't want to do with theirs what I'm doing with mine.
But that's them throwing stones at the glass house, because how is it that you want to get with me because I'm big with men? But and this really goes for the women more than the men. I say that the men are guilty in this, but I look at more the women. And how is it that we're getting down the pond, but look at the woman who's been worried about 50 freaking different times, and she cannot find the man who fathered her 3 kids. It's like, come on now.
True.
This is standard. True. So this is Pop. I'm appreciating the fact that we're having this conversation. I wanted to take a break, but at this point, I want us to roll through and start to talk through the solutions here, because for us to listen, we've unpacked a lot about what's underneath this scenario here and why we're even having this call and the importance of it, because we all get it. My thing now is with this collective wisdom that we have, what are the solutions we could speak into the environment right now? Because really, what we're talking here is unearthing the self-awareness. We're stepping into the arena of what this is and what this is, the perspective of this. Now it's like, okay, what are the ways that we start to work this mojo? Whether it's in relation to being more open, if it's in relation to semen retention, if it's in relation to how we communicate our needs and wants, how we enter in the world. What are the ways that we begin to harness, or again, try to direct this energy in a space that's productive for ourselves and the community? And my comment, my thought is part of this is semen retention, in my judgment, because it's a semen retention and tapping into a feminine energy within self, because the feminine energy is the creation, and the feminine energy can give birth to something. And my perception is, and it's actually in alignment with what you all were just saying, there's this perception of the feminine energy as soft, whereas the feminine energy is an energy. It's the yin and yang. It's conducive with the masculine energy. Now, the feminine energy is the softness, it's the nursing. Just do it. Go to break. Go to break.
Because you're going to start talking, then we want to say something on top of that. So this can go on. Keep going.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, forget the break, man. Because we got we take a break for 5, and then I figure
it's going to dissipate.
Huh? Yeah, man. Let's just go in, man. So,
wait a minute. You were talking about taking a break, thinking about it, doing meditation, and coming back with solutions. Now, if you don't want to do that, that's fine. But you keep saying, let's do it. But then we start spraying out. I think we do need
I'm not going to.
I think we do need to ground this. Think about it. I mean.
So what I'm going to have you do as far as the grounding, because I want to make use of this time, because we unpacked a lot about what's here, right? And I want us to take some energy to direct to the solutions, right? What's that? So the grounding that I'm going to have us do is a mudra rather than taking break. And I'd like you guys, as we're going through this, and as you're doing your comments and thinking through this, we're going to do this yoni mudra. It's for opening and connecting with the feminine energy. All right. So, and as you respond or connect, and what this is you guys can take your hands, you're going to interlace them. Your pinky, ring, and middle finger are going to connect. Your thumb and index finger connect. So if you look right here, this is what it's going to look like. All right, this is a mudra. This is a hand position. This connects different energy centers. All right, and this also taps into feminine energy, the creator energy. So Ivy's taking a break, but I'm going to have us here. Let's take a couple breaths here. Breathe into this space. Experience the opportunity, allow what you've heard to resonate in your body, in your mind. direct your breath all the way down into the basin of your pelvis, into your lower back. Inhaling through your nostrils, exhaling through your mouth. Let's get 2 more breaths here. You can release the mudra or keep it down by your lap. You connect and communicate or release. Kind of shake your body out. This type of work is the work of kings, the sovereign, because it's cutting through the ordinary and getting to the extraordinary. And the space that we'll dive into now is the extraordinary. This is the solution piece. And with what we've heard so far, the questions are, from the solutions, what's the self-awareness? What's the integration? What's the ownership or declaration around our control, our sacred control, our dick control? And as you check in, you can talk to all 3 of these or talk to one specifically that resonates with you. And I'm going to start us off. I'm going to come back. I'm going to take us off the screen share. I'm going to put the self-awareness and integration. Integration. So I'm going to have, here's the order that we'll check in. I'm going to have Lincoln, because I'd like to hear from you. Keaton, Vincent, and Ivy.
Can you repeat the question again?
Sure. So when it comes to dick control or sacred control of self and that energy, what's the next step or what's the solution to harness that? Is it self-awareness, integration, ownership, collection of 3? What is it for you? How would you describe it? Answer to that or respond to that.
For me, I would say it's a combination of everything, because it's, for me, it's certain. It's not and or, but first we have to be self-aware. And for me personally, I think we need to break the culture of shame as it pertains to intimacy. We have to break the shame as it pertains to how we view things, how we express ourselves. Just our old culture, how we're educated about certain things as it pertains to the topic. And we have to be a little bit more open. I'm shocked that we're having this open conversation right now, because this is something that's new for me. It's something that I like to see more circles like this, or more open conversation, especially among Black men. For me, before this, I would have, maybe if you had invited me last year, I wouldn't have joined the call, to be honest. It also has to do with how, I think education has to do a lot with it. And then I think it starts with Black men. And as Black men, we just have to break certain stereotypes. We just have to break certain way in which we have been programmed. We have to be a little bit more open-minded and just face this situation head on. I'm not sure. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do, man. Like, be able to address it rather than run from it. Like, have the conversation, have the difficult speak with it. That's a huge piece. Man. I'm happy we have these conversations, because when we fail to have the conversation, then that's when we go awry. That's when things go amok. There's no one speaking it, and as you can see, there's people here that understand and recognize what's been going on. Rick, welcome. Where we are right now, we're checking in with solutions around dick control, whether it's self-awareness, integration, or ownership. We're going to send you the recording too at the end of this because you joined in. Well, actually, you're recording, and we're not sure yet if we're going to keep the recording, so we'll check in with that one later. Lincoln, thank you. Does anyone have a quick comment before we move to Keaton on what Lincoln shared? 1 or 2 sentences? We're good. Okay. All right, Keaton.
I'm writing something down, so.
Okay.
So, wait, let me read this again. Let me see this. Okay. So self-awareness, integration, and declaration is the 3 things that you wrote, correct?
Yes.
Let me see here. I mean, looking at it from this perspective and looking at it from this angle, I think it's something that has basically been well hidden. When I say that is because, I mean, from what I have seen through entertainment, through our community, through how we combat against racial injustice, like, it's really good to cover something. It's really good to cover these really touchy subjects up with something glamorous. I mean, you know, growing up and watching rap music, I mean, you see it's nothing but, you know, my money and how much I have and stuff of that nature. And it also goes to how I feel like people have not really take heed to how our pioneers, how Dr. King, how Bayard Rustin, how many people before us have been able to combat against these situations. So I really think that it also has to just deal with a lot of poisoning from many areas, from many situations, I should so to speak. And because we are so about over glorification, is good for us because that is what's going to be the hot topic of the moment. And when we are so stuck on how much money do you make and things of that nature, then we don't have to dig as deep as we've been digging in these last conversations. Because, you know, it's always easy for us to talk about money. It's always easy for us to talk about how we put each other down, how people put us down, and things of that nature. Not saying that those things don't need no attention. Of course they need attention. But a lot of it is basically fog. So it's like we talk about it, but, you know, I mean, you might get something that will be agreeable among people in the room, and then you'll just get something that is kind of just like, okay, well, now you just made some points too. I can't see what you're talking about. So, but the more real we get, the better it gets, because once we are able to break down one thing, we get to the next thing. So when we get to the next thing, we can get to the ultimate situation, which is about intimacy, which is about what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a Black man? and not just what society puts on you, not even what the Black community puts on you. So there is just, there's just very, very big multiple layers to this. And I don't know if I hit any of those three.
Well, what I'm hearing you say is, it's all good. I mean, I hear in what you're saying, it's about a self-awareness of where they are as a Black man, as a man. And then I also hear ownership in what you're saying too. I mean, that's what I'm hearing. I mean, does anyone else have any comments before we move to the next? Ivy?
Yeah, I just want to know if he could say in 2 or 3 sentences or less what the solution is. I mean, you thought it out. You added a lot of story. I couldn't tell which direction you were going in. So in terms of what is a solution, can you give a thumbnail, 3 sentences or less, what solution you're offering?
The solution is definitely conversation, because I am always been about conversation.
No story, just the solution, conversation, no story.
Sorry, but like I said, conversation, that really needs to be what is a solution, at least for me, because it opens a lot of different doors.
Okay, thank you.
End it right there.
Thank you.
What's up? Thanks, Ivy. Ivy holding that line like, what? Let's get this. Yo, this is good because listen, this is what can happen when we start to talk solutions. Because very rare do we talk solutions, so it's like we can get into this space. So sometimes we got this is where the conversation comes in. So thank you for that, Keaton. We got Ivy, then we got Vincent, then Ivy, and then Rick. I'm gonna have you check in with thoughts on what you're hearing so far. So Vincent.
Right. Well, like I said, we are a square peg trying to fit into a round hole, and we're not doing it very well. We need to throw off this American individualism that we bought into. It does not work for us, and it is at the root of all of our issues. Is we are trying so hard to be like them and next to them that we haven't even discovered who we are. So you're talking about self-awareness. Self-awareness, we need to find out. We need to make some admissions that this is me. We need to make some admissions that this works for me, this doesn't work for me. You know what I'm saying? We need to make some admissions about these things. We're not making those admissions, right? And the integration, there's several different layers of integration that we can talk about. So I don't know if I want to go into that. So I'm going to skip that and go on to declaration and ownership. Now, as I was saying to Keaton earlier, like I've been so much more disgusting than he could ever be because I'm just looking at my heterosexual male behavior, which was rather disgusting as a youth. You know what I'm saying? All up until I was like almost 30. You know what I'm saying? Like the stuff that I can't imagine that this young man did some of the shit I was doing, whether he was in a homosexual relationship, heterosexual relationship, whatever that is. You know what I'm saying? All the hearts that he broke, all the things, all the people that he did wrong, all the, you know what I'm saying? To me, that's disgusting. You understand what I'm saying? Some of the stuff I can't mend. Some of the stuff I broke, and I may have caused some more brokenness that cascaded after that. So we have to fix that. We have to be honest with ourselves and tell ourselves that this does not work. And it's complete with our conduct, complete with what we eat, and complete financially. None of the stuff that our participation in American individuality is a failed experiment. As I told you before, we are a new people. So we are in a new country. Our country is just over 200 years old, and we are a people who's actually newer than the country is. We didn't form when the country formed. We formed after that. So we are a new people in a new country, and we are not who we are going to be yet. So some of this we need to go through to find out who we are. Some of this is the rainstorm that we can't avoid, right? Some of these mistakes I made, I needed to make, and maybe as Ivy said, I need to come back in my next life so I can make good on it. Maybe I need to do that.
Let's see what she did there.
All right, I'm done.
Oh man, I see how you came back on that.
My solution is to reject the American individualism.
I like that. Okay, that's what's up, man. Ooh, man. I love this. I love the solutions conversation. Ivy.
Okay. A lot of good stuff has been said. I think I'm just going to repeat what's been said, but in a different way, in my terminology. There is a concept of the wounded healer, or to be a healer, is that when I can resolve an issue in myself, which for me means also within my ancestors, I can help the next person resolve the issue or avoid the problem altogether. So with that said, it's sort of like communication, whatever, all the different stuff that was said, it's going to be a matter of me teaching the children. And because it's not going to happen in our lifetime. It may not even happen in the next generation, but we can begin to turn the ship around. And it's a matter of going in and looking at myself and then turning around and teaching the children. And a lot of what's been said, one of my side gigs is working with children. And I've noticed through a year's period how the terminology and the interaction is changing. So it is actually happening. So it's a matter of it's happening here. But then again, we have same-sex marriage. So that was really opening up to a lot of kids around sexuality, intimacy, and sensuality. So it really goes back to how we mentor the children. And in order to do that, I have to heal within myself. And I'll tag out with, again, this has been said in different ways, the healing of myself is to get rid of, and I forgot how Vincent actually phrased it, but the restrictions that a fake, false narrative has placed on my existence. I need to go through and get rid of a lot of what the church has put out, a lot of what the binary has put out, a lot of the messages that are based on lies, falsehoods, misinformation that has been placed on me and my ancestors for so long. I take them as the truth. I need to look at them, undo them, and in essence, rescind the oath, get rid of those vows. And like we're becoming a new people in a new time. But that's globally. I mean, there is a transition into the Aquarian age, into the, passing through the photon belt. There's a whole thing that's global. So it's not what I'm going through only, it's the impact on community. It takes a village to raise a child. And then there's another saying that I really, really like, and that is, you teach a man, you teach one person. You teach a woman, you teach a community. So it goes back to the respect and how we treat the women, or the sacred feminine, and how we treat the earth, which is the sacred feminine. It's our relationship to the divine. And then that goes back to how I control my dick, because there is a disrespectful aspect of, quote unquote, spilling my seed on the ground. It's not that there's anything wrong with self-gratification. It's the lack of mindfulness of just rubbing one out and getting on to dinner because I got a date tonight. It's not really the moose in the hair. So you saw the movie, right?
Yeah.
Something about whatever. Yeah. So
that's still a movie.
Yeah, it's ditching the whole paradigm. And years ago, and I'll tag out with this, I hope, people used to look at me like I was kind of weird when I say humanity is a failed experiment. And Vincent narrowed it down. It's what the migration and the genocide and everything else of the move into the Americas, that's a huge failed experiment. And my survival does not matter. The survival of future generations, the kids that are coming, and that's what the whole thing of spreading your seed is about. So we have to be there to teach the children, but we have to take care of our wounds first and our ancestors' wounds, and get rid of all the false narratives that have been placed on us. Thank you.
I should. Man, thank you. Wow. Thank you, man. You want to check in with you, Rick, if you have any thoughts on what you've heard, and also I want to hear from you, man. This is any last comments before we start to wrap and start to wind down.
Yeah, I'll be
Rick, welcome, buddy.
Thank you, and thank you, Lincoln, for giving me this link a few minutes ago. He was right. This is a call that's right up my alley. Yeah, I'll be brief. I really liked what Vincent and Ivy said about essentially, like Ivy just said, stepping away from the paradigm. I'm not comfortable sharing too much about what I've been doing in this area since separating from my wife about 6 weeks ago, but what I've discovered is that, for me anyway, it is good for me to listen to what my dick is trying to tell me. It's healthy. I should not regard this organ as a stupid organ. I originally acquired this idea from a guy named Rakim Sekou. He's a member of an Asheville Black couple that they're big on polyamory. You can look them up. The business name is Juju Mama, one word. But in short, I think part of the false narratives that have been referenced include regarding our bodies as stupid and also not regarding them as sacred. And I think, without being very specific, part of the solution is, like I said, listening to all parts of our bodies and also taking risks, as others have said, with doing what we think is going to be healing for us while being very honest with whomever we're interacting with. And that's a whole nother topic. But when it comes to romantic relationships of any kind, I think we're probably in a global culture that makes being very honest difficult. And I'd love to engage in conversations about how to do that in such a way as to be both respectful and also, quite frankly, to help us achieve the goal of successfully relating with, in my case, women or whomever. Because excessive vulnerability can be a turnoff. I guess that's the story I tell myself. So that's some of my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you for that, man. Thank you. And this is coming to something that Keaton and Lincoln talk to, is about that communication too, having the conversation, because, and this is another piece, especially in regards to treating the body as sacred. When do we have that when do we learn that communication? What are the ways that we learn to communicate and stepping into it? Like, so, part of learning how to communicate is understanding I may step on someone's toes. I may say something that has an impact on someone else. And the extended part of that is working through that in the conversation, still working through that.